Floppy Waffle 69 here, and welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we are going to be looking at the Tier 9 premium ship for the United States Navy, the USS Johnston. A ship that, I guess, to all those history buffs out there, really doesn't need that much of an introduction. This ship is pretty legendary in its service history and what it was able to accomplish and what it was able to do. I think it was the Battle of Leyte Gulf, if I'm not 100% mistaken. But I'm not going to go into much on the history side of things. I don't want to butcher it and kind of sell this ship short of what it's for what it did during World War II. So we're just going to strictly say on the gameplay basis of the ship. But basically, why are we covering this ship? And there's mainly one big reason. I mean, obviously one is like I think the ship is awesome. It's a lot of fun to play. But the main reason is the GQ Jonny is a ship that of update 14.7 or as of update 14.7 you can obtain for free pretty much just by playing the game for as long as this grand voyage and all this all these events their wargaming kicking off in regards to like their celebration of 10 years of World of Warships. This is a ship that you can earn for free. Obviously it's not the name, the USS Johnston, and you don't have the battered and beaten to hell camo that the GQ Jonny has, but yes, the GQ Jonny in all intents and purposes is basically a copy pasta clone of the Johnston. And the reason why they are creating all these copy pasta ships is I have no idea, probably to earn more money, because if you have a Johnston, you're a ship collector and you want a GQ Jonny, or you want the camo, the cool beaten camo, battered to hell camo, you have to go either just play the game, spend money, yada yada, that kind of jazz. And it's not just this. What I'm saying that doesn't just pertain to the USS Johnston. It pertains to a lot of ships. We've seen this with like Yamatos. We've seen this with all the Arpeggio ships. I mean, with certain collaborations, right? You see this. They do this tactic. Or recently with the Blue Archive event, they've actually hidden premium ships that I wish they would have just flat out been released. Instead, they renamed them to like Biona's Whale or whatever the hell they're called, and they shove them in there for the event rather than just be standalone ships. And that's kind of frustrating to me as a player that I don't really play those collaboration ships, nor do I really want to play those collaboration ships. I want to play air quotes, the real steel ships, the way they look, to somewhat stay in the realms of what this game's trying to be. And if I got any of those ships, I mean, yeah, I could hide the camos, I could demount them, but it's just frustrating. I really wish they wouldn't do that, from a standpoint, at least for how I like to play the game. But that's okay. I digress. I know there's mods out there. I know there's other ways to get around it, but it doesn't matter. I figured I'd just do a little rant right there real quick. But anyways, yes, we are doing a analysis of the USS Johnston mainly because of the GQ Jonny that you can earn for free. So I want to showcase this ship, and I want to talk a little bit about her and what she's good at, her strengths, her weaknesses, her pros, her cons, and basically how to deal with her out on the high seas. This ship is interesting because we're going to talk a lot about the ship, obviously with its hard stats, but we're also going to talk a lot about kind of a swing and a miss by Wargaming, in my opinion, about what this ship could have been. In regards of the development process and kind of what it ended up being. And it's pretty frustrating. And again, I believe the ship was an exorbitant price or within loot crates way back in the day. Or actually not way back. I think it was like, last year or 2 years ago when the ship was originally sold. Very frustrating to a lot of players, a lot of history buffs out there. Obviously for our fellow, Americans who really knew about the ship, who really loved the ship's history, that really couldn't obtain her because of that. And just incredibly scummy and frustrating at the same time. But hey, this is Wargaming at the end of the day. This ain't gonna change. I'm sorry. It's just something that Sally's been part of the game for quite some time now. So it's kind of their old business model strategy. But yes, this ship is interesting in the fact that it gets a burst fire mode. So basically, you're taking a Fletcher and you're putting HE and SAP on her, rather than just HE and AP. You make her torpedo reload longer, but you give her like the black 13.5 kilometer torpedo range, and just again fidgeting some numbers here and there, and we'll look at that here in a bit. But then you slap on this burst fire mode, and again with the SAP, this thing can get. I mean, I don't know the exact numbers. This thing can get high. I don't know if it's the highest SAP DPM now at tier 9 because the Christopher is a thing with the new Burroughs line. If someone knows that or the hard data on that, by all means, just go ahead and list that in the comment below. I'll go ahead and pin you. But I can only imagine it's got to be neck and neck. It's got to be close, right? At least in my opinion. I don't know. Okay, this is someone saying I flat out do not know, and I'd rather admit that I do not know rather than just spew shit out of my ass, and act like it's fact, right? So if you do know, go ahead and do that, and I tell you, I'll go ahead and pin you in the comments. Um, but you have this burst fire mode, which is interesting because not only does this burst fire mode, well, not only is it incredibly frustrating and toxic, because I don't really like ships with burst fire modes, that's just my opinion, in regards to what they bring to the game, but it does actually give you, I know for a fact, and I know this to be fact, it actually gives you better DPM to use the burst fire mode than if you just use the standard reload. I believe their standard reload's like 4 something seconds around there, when the burst fire mode with your intervals between shots are like 1.6 or something like that jazz. And yes, with a full mag reload of like 7 seconds, something around there, when we'll get to that. But yeah, just there'd be, I don't know why you wouldn't use the burst fire mode. To me, I don't know if this was intentional by Wargaming or if this was just something that they just overlooked. In my regard, or like in my understanding of how Wargaming works, I believe this was intentional. They wanted a ship that didn't punish you that badly for doing, or punish you at all for using a burst fire mode, and I think this is the ship for you, in my opinion. In my opinion, right? Um, so kind of weird. I can only list maybe a couple of scenarios that I really wouldn't want to use the burst fire mode, but when you're playing the ship, you want to almost selectively and solely be using the burst fire mode, which again is just a baffling decision on a ship when you're creating her and designing her. It should be a quality of life, tactic improvement, kind of a deterrence for other destroyers when engaging you. But they just didn't seem to make that right. They just wanted to do a burst fire mode on here and say, fuck it, we're going to leave it as is. And yeah, have fun. Whatever. I'm not here going to nitpick about the, design about the ship in regards uh, of the way they went for the development cycle. I kind of wish they would have, made it more like a kid to up at tier 9, kind of like what we're getting with the Laffy. I can't help but think like they saw what happened with the Johnston for last year or whatever, and then they're like, we're going to make this ship, right? And they're going to make, the Laffy. Because the Laffy, in my opinion, is a blast of a DD, right? I mean, it looks super fun, and I can't wait to get my hands on that ship, and obviously down the road do a little ship analysis for you on that. But I can't help but feel like, to me, that would be a little bit more fun. Like, this is such more in the realms of the arcadey version of World of Warships rather than what I think we all know and love. But again, I could be alone on this one. I don't know what other players think. That's just something that I've seen as a trend throughout the last, I don't know, 3-4 years. And ever since Super Ships, realistically, when they had it, the Annapolis with that burst fire mode and all that jazz, they just love the old burst fire mode, slapping that on ships. And then, of course, obviously the F keys ever since the San Martin line, right? So, but enough for this talking about, what ifs, what nots, and all this bullshit. I think it's just time you look at the ship, break down her stats, and so you understand a little bit more about what potentially you will be getting if you do obtain the GQ Jonny, or if you see her in the high seas, how to deal with her. So, like I always do, I'm going to go ahead and go over the armor view, the armor scheme. Obviously, with destroyers, there's only so many, or a handful of DDs that really have improved armor schemes. Obviously, the GQ Jonny, or Johnston in this case, doesn't have that with the 19 millimeter pretty much everywhere on the ship. As you can see, yeah, I mean, this ship, obviously, against DD on DD engagements, any ship you're going to be able to slap this thing. It's just what it's going to be there for. It's just, again, it's a balancing thing for destroyers. So, really nothing too interesting with the armor scheme. Going into the survivability of the USS Johnston, you have 17,700. Now, where does this fit you or put you in regards of the rest of the tier, I guess, 9 destroyers? Well, you're kind of in the middle of the road, middle to low, I guess. I think the lowest being the Venom with 14,500, and then, of course, the highest being the Palo Emilio with 24,400. So I guess you're middle to low is kind of where I see this thing at. So, like, for example, the Christopher, which is the latest edition with, again, it's kind of not I don't want to say similar playstyle, but I guess we're going to go similar playstyle because sap, right? And that thing's coming in at 20,700. So it's just one, again, you have a little bit less HP. Obviously, survivability expert is going to be taken on this ship for your commander skill. Pretty much your cookie cutter builds that you have on these on your ships, because that's the commander rework, right? So moving into the artillery, and you have the 5x1 127 millimeter guns. These are very standard. These are Fletcher guns. It's a Fletcher class destroyer. These are Fletcher guns. So if you've played the Fletcher, it should be very familiar with you guys and how this operates and all that jazz. Going into the reload time, it is 4 seconds. I believe the Fletcher has a quicker reload. The Fletcher does come at like 3.3 or 3.5, somewhere around there. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, and again, I probably should have done that, but you know, it's like whatever. It doesn't really fucking matter. Let me see if I can find it for you guys here. Yeah, the black has 3.3. That's another Fletcher class. The Velos is a little quicker. I really won't say that. It's 2.5. Fletcher, yeah, 3.3. So you're a little bit longer. And I'm assuming they did this because when you put in the burst fire mode, it's going to obviously alter that quite a bit, and it factors in the reload times for how long after you dispel your 3-round burst magazine, how long it takes to reload after that. I think that's what they were going for with this. Thank God they factored that in. But yeah, 180-degree turn time is just like 6 seconds essentially. Maximum range is 12.5 kilometers. Going into the high explosive, you have 1,800 shell damage with a 5% fire chance that can go ahead and pen 21 millimeters of armor. Your initial velocity is 792 meters a second. Again, pretty standard, basically a Fletcher, right? Obviously, we're going to change here with the semi-armor piercing. This is going to be 2,500 sap max damage with 36 millimeters of penetration and initial velocity of 792. So again, there needs to be no factoring in less or more lead time with the shells, depending on HE or sap. It's going to be standardized across the board. You should be able to lead your targets appropriately as long as you get that distance down, right? And timing. With the sap, though, I know where the hell is it? I don't know where it is, but basically, if we look at your shells, the sap, and in regard to the damage, the Johnston is coming in at 2,500. The Christopher is coming at 3,000. The Adriatico is 3,050, and same with the Paolo, matching the Adriatico. Again, if I'm butchering these names, I don't give a fuck. As long as you know what ship I'm talking about, that's all it is, okay? I have to say that because someone did comment on my DeGrasse video, where the fuck, you're butchering the pronunciation. Like, obviously I'm going to do that. Again, I'm here because I review the ships in game. I'm not here to make sure I get the names right. I try, but at the end of the day, if I'm not right, I'm not right. No one's really like sweating about it here. And if you are, well, that sucks. Okay. So yeah, that's one thing just to compare with the Christopher. So you are doing a little less damage, but again, the Christopher doesn't have a burst fire mode. But the Christopher does reload in a reasonable manner, I'm pretty sure here. It's 4.1 seconds. Again, it can take the reload mod, just like the Johnston can take the reload mod to get it down to 4 seconds. Obviously, as you see, I'm doing. But those are 137 mil. So again, it's one of those things that's like tomato. You're just changing stats ever so slightly. That's why I wasn't really too sure if this thing's sap DPM is more than the Christopher. As far as I could tell, if the sap DPM of the Christopher is 263,415, and it has a slightly faster reload at 4.1 seconds, with the reload being down with the upgrade in the slot 6, and with the burst fire mode of the Johnston, I can only assume the Johnston has higher. That's kind of my real life world math skills working in my head, eternal math skills. But again, if you know the numbers, go ahead and put it down below. Going to the torpedoes, you have the 2x5 533 millimeter torpedo mounts with the they travel about 13.5 kilometers. Like I said, I think these are black torpedoes in that regard. They do have a maximum damage of 17,900, which is nice. They go about 66 knots with a detectability range of 1.4 kilometers. Trying to look at the hard numbers here with the torpedoes. That's going to give you a reaction time of 7.9 seconds, give or take, with that detectability and speed getting factored in. One thing I wanted to keep note, because I really don't talk about the captain builds when I'm doing these ship reviews. I always forget, to bounce back and forth between my captain builds or whatnot, or I just don't want to do that because I don't want to show that on screen. But I don't take any torpedo skills with my Johnston. Now, why is that? Well, why would I when my gun power is this strong on the Johnston and I have the burst fire mode? I want to make sure I'm putting everything and basically emphasizing and putting all my points necessary into make sure my main battery stays strong and even gets even stronger. That is my bread and butter of this ship. That's why you play this ship. This is a gunboat. Yes, you have torpedoes. Technically, you have the torpedo power to send them out there and get hits. You can torpedo from stealth. I'm not knocking on the torpedoes. I'm just saying you would want to play this ship mainly for its burst fire mode, sap, and its guns. If you want to play more of a torpedo focused or not really torpedo focused, but more torpedo emphasized gameplay, I think the freaking standardized Fletcher is probably just going to be better for that. It's going to reload faster, and it still has what 10.5 or something kilometer torpedoes. I think it's not a bad torpedo boat either. Not that it is, I'm just saying it can do that role. So going to its AA defense. Again, I normally don't talk about this because usually they're shit. But I did find myself shooting down a decent amount of planes with the Johnston. Again, making sure I know when my AA is on and my AA is off. Obviously, it's not going to stop and neutralize a strike, but you're still going to be able to decently shoot down some planes with that. Obviously, you can slot the defensive fire consumable if you so choose. And I believe this is the improved American defensive destroyer defensive AA. So you can do that if you want to do that. And you're only going to make it better at doing that specific role. But in my opinion, I think the speed boost is the superior choice to get to set areas, to disengage, to chase down enemy destroyers, potentially submarines. I just think the speed boost is better, and that's actually why I take the speed boost modification in the second slot to extend the duration by 30 or 20% or whatever it is, just to make sure I have my speed boost up for longer periods of time, so I'm not really, sweating when it's down. Not that you would be, I'm just saying, like, for me personally, it's really helping the ship reach its strengths, and be able to help support allies in various other locations. That's why I run that. Just my opinion, my build. It really works for me, so I like it. Going back to the AA though, obviously the anti-aircraft fire can be good if you choose to use the defensive AA fire consumable. If that's down, which most likely it will be, or if you choose not to take it at all, like I do, it's kind of subpar, what you'd expect. I mean, you have the 5.8 kilometer long range with the DPS of 74 at that long range, medium range 3.5 with 112, and the short range at 2 kilometers is 50 with a flat count of 3 plus 1. I mean, it's really nothing to write home about, guys. It's pretty ass, but at least you'll be able to shoot down a couple. I feel like the American DDs can do that. And again, most destroyers can get away with that because usually, and you should, have your anti-aircraft fires or guns offline, with the P key or whatever. And then when you either get plane spotted or right before they're ready to fly over top of you, before you get plane spotted, you can go ahead and proc that with priority sector. And that'll do a lot of damage in regards of your anti-aircraft fire to planes. Obviously, Tier 8 aircraft carriers, you love to see it, you have your way with. Tier 10 carriers, you struggle a bit, and then God forbid you get thrown in a super carrier game. It's, again, the trend you see, right? Maneuverability, 38 knots with a turning circle radius of 580 meters and a rudder shift time of 3 seconds, with that acceleration of the Johnston coming in at 19.1 without your speed boost activated. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty maneuverable. It feels very comfortable to play. Really no complaints here. The Fletcher as a standalone, talking more about the Fletcher. The Fletcher by itself is already a solid foundation of a destroyer. So going, any ship that's going to take the Fletcher whole and alter it, usually they're not altering the maneuverability hardly at all. The maneuverability is fine. No complaints about the maneuverability ever with the Fletcher. I always felt this DD to be comfortable, and I think a lot of people way back in the day even said, because this is when destroyers ate full pens from armor piercing, especially battleships, people loved the Fletcher more than the Gearing, because the Gearing was a fat boy, a little fat guy, and he obviously had a little bit improved armor. I think instead of 19, he had like 20 or 21 millimeters to shatter destroyer HE, and it really allowed the Gearing to take more full pens, and it's an easier target to hit. So that's why I think the whole discussion say, well, the Fletcher's actually the tier 10, and it's better, blah blah, and so and so. So that's why there's definitely a loyal fan base of the Fletcher class destroyers in this game, myself included. I really do find these ships, no matter what nation's flag is flying on the mast, and no matter what name it is, if it's a Fletcher class destroyer, I usually have a good time, and I find them pretty strong and fun to play. The Halford being the exception, I actually do well in her because I understand how hybrids work and how to play, when to launch my aircraft and when not to. But for the vast majority of the player base, I just don't think the Halford is that good of a destroyer, and I would highly suggest you do not put either your doubloons or your resources into getting her. Just my opinion. And because trust me, I will get to that ship down the road and cover her. And that's really how I feel about her. Concealment. So we have a base of 7.16 kilometers. Obviously, if you take the concealment mod and slot, was that 5? Or slot 4? Well, you know what I'm talking about. And go ahead and get that detection down to 6.4. And with the commander, you get it down to, I believe, 5.8. Yes, you do get it down to 5.8. Oh, whoops, don't want to do that. Just send her back to the reserve. Um, Really good stuff. Obviously, a Fletcher class destroyer is being reasonably stealthy. It's really good numbers, really flexible, allows you to get into certain advantageous positions to utilize either get the surprise on other targets, and it obviously with the Johnston makes it even that much more scary because your burst fire mode and sap, you can really catch a lot of DDs off guard. So really strong, really strong. But yeah, guys, that is the Johnston. And the port analysis side of things, this is the USS Johnston. And I do apologize. I kind of did go off topic here so far in the beginning of the video and just talked a lot about the development of the ship and kind of what I would rather have seen. And then I said I'm not here to discuss about the development process of things. And, I kind of get sidetracked, but I think it's valid points to talk about this stuff because again, this channel was created all about I don't want to say educational, like I know it all. I certainly don't. But basically made to have discussions and debate about certain ships and just talk about them and, kind of mix and match play styles and captain builds and all that and just kind of see what works for people. And maybe it gives people ideas of certain ways to play ships. I know I've already been commented on 2 of my videos of builds that I have tried, and I actually really do like the builds that people recommended. The one that stands out to the most of me be with my I don't know who he is, and I should have like popped his username up here, but again for confidentiality reasons I didn't want to do that. He recommended a kind of a lighthouse mines build. That is incredibly strong and more yet incredibly fun playstyle. So if you're listening to this, dude, awesome. I do love that. Super fun. Build, but like that kind of stuff, guys, like that's what I'm talking about. That's what this channel is all about. So by all means, if you want to have discussion in a respectful manner, go ahead and throw it down in the comments. We do love to joke here on this channel. Obviously I love quoting movies and my shorts that I make when I play with my friends. All we do is we quote fucking movies. So again, I love that on this channel. Every now and then with certain reviews I'll throw in little movie quotes because it's just fucking stupid and it's funny and it helps add some character and humor to these videos, and that's what I like to see. But with that being said, I also like to cover the serious side of ships like I do here with these ship analysis videos, because obviously these ships cost time and resources and potentially hard-earned money of yours, and I don't want you guys to be throwing money at this, not knowing what you're getting, being ill-informed by it, and having your expectations set like, oh wow, if certain YouTubers get 200, 300,000 damage games in it, then I can go ahead and get that, because that's just not the case, guys, right? Most of us don't live on World of Warships for 8 to 10 hours a day, Twitch stream, that kind of jazz. Like we have lives, we have jobs, we do things, but when we want to invest our time, we want to make sure we're getting what we pay for and understand where these ships are coming from, where the development process is coming from, that sort of thing. So that's why I really made this channel. So with that being said, god damn, we can't speak today. With that being said, guys, let's go ahead and get into the gameplay of the Johnston. Alrighty, guys, and here we are in battle. And before we get started here, and before things start getting really good, I want to make sure I touch base on a couple things that I forgot to kind of mention. Port screen analysis, and one of the big glaring things that I not forgot, but I wanted to save it for more of the battle, because it's worth talking about now than it was in the port screen, is the burst fire mode, or the alternative firing mode. Obviously this can be activated and deactivated by pressing your F key when playing with the anyone that has an alternative burst fire mode or whatever. But the burst fire mode basically allows us to have a 3-round burst per turret. This is the interval between the shots is 1.4 seconds, and the reload time in general after all 3 rounds per turret are expended gives us a 9-second reload on our guns. But that being said, it actually translates to better DPM overall than if you just simply had your normal 4-second reload on the ship. It's weird, and something tells me that this was intentional by Wargaming when they did this, and I think this is because they wanted to make a ship that is fun to play, check, but also kind of pays tribute to the historical relevance and what this ship did. They wanted to make a ship that was fearless, could get in there, brawl, and really dish out the pain to any enemy ship, not just solely destroyers, though it fucking shits on destroyers probably the hardest just because of its stealth and burst fire mode. Which, again, I understand the direction they went for, but I can't help but feel that I'm a little bit disappointed by this overall build. And there's a reason for that. I wanted or thought that this ship would be mimicking that more of like the USS Kidd down at Tier 8 than what we have currently. And I'm not saying what we have isn't good. I'm just saying that I can't help but feel like that would have been more in line with the service history and identity of that of the Johnston, like the Kidd is, for example. And that's, I think, why with the Laffy, we're getting her in her state and kind of development and what she, like her overall play style is because of that same thing. So, again, just my 2 cents, not necessarily the truth, or you could differ than me, but it just seems like ships that have burst fire modes and all this jazz, I just don't like them. They're just bleh. I don't know if they're healthy for the game, having this fictional like do thing. It's just, yeah, overall downright frustrating. So but the burst fire mode does improve the overall DPM of the ship. That is just a fact. Again, I mentioned it in the port analysis. I don't think the Christopher beats her. I think the Johnston might have the highest with the burst fire mode, but the Christopher has like 260,000 SAP DPS, and I can't help but feel like this is more than that, even though the Christopher has, what, a 4.1 second reload base, though you can get that down even further. It's one of those things that's neck and neck. To me, at least, it seems like it's pretty close. But I still think the Johnston edged it out just ever so slightly. But again, I digress with that. One thing I didn't mention about this ship, again, I touched on it. I didn't like really talk into depth about it, is actually the torpedoes. You have the 13.5 kilometer range, which gives you a lot of flexibility with playing around, radar, for example. And you can basically dump these torpedoes and then start, smoking up or kiting away while shooting. And it can really distract players, and because they always forget how long range torpedoes you actually have. I have done this multiple times. I have launched my torpedoes, turned around, waited a couple seconds, 10, 15, whatever, and then started firing. And it's like they see my distance at, 13, 14 kilometers. They're like, oh, he's a Fletcher. He only has 10 kilometer torpedoes. There's no way there's torpedoes in the water. And then, lo and behold, I get some torpedo ribbons, which I'm emphasizing with my fires on the ship or just raw sap damage. And I go ahead and get more floods. Or I get floods on them, actually, not more, but just floods. So that's a good tactic I like to utilize sometimes in this ship. Again, because I'm the lone destroyer in this game, and this might not be the best game to showcase this particular element. If it's a multiple DD level game, I do like to get in there and be a little bit more of a bully towards enemy destroyers, as you can really do that with this ship. But obviously, I'm the only destroyer. I got to make sure I'm spotting these targets. Obviously, it's the engagement is taking place mainly to the right side of C, and I want to make sure I'm keeping a lot of these targets lit so that not only my div mate but my allies can plan and shoot ships accordingly based upon what I'm spotting. One thing as a DD that I cannot stress enough: no matter what destroyer you are in, you should always go into the battle and at scenarios wanting to spot for your teams, or for your team. Obviously, there are DDs that have 150 millimeter guns. Now there's a destroyer, the hull, that has 203 millimeter guns. I understand there's a lot of DDs that can dish out the pain, have the DPM like this thing, and can really be a nuisance. And I'm not saying don't do that, but I am saying that I can't help but feel my 203 millimeter gun Des Moines or my 460 millimeter Yamato 9-gun Yamato can do more damage overall to larger surface ships than I can. Okay, you're more of a chipping ship. You chip ships down. You chip ships down with your overall damage per minute over time, right? They can potentially just have the alpha strike to really eliminate the targets, and that's kind of what I want to do. Every destroyer should go into the game and play the game with trying to provide vision for your allies. That's no question, right? No question on that. But again, there are times when ships, like your battleships, are keeping other ships spotted. Then you can go ahead and smoke up and start applying your damage at those said ships, right? So it's just understanding the scenarios, reading the map accordingly, seeing how the battle develops, and making the appropriate decisions. Again, this is something you can't just do overnight. This is just learned from playing the game and potentially the ship you're trying to play, and just getting a better mastery and better feel for it overall. But this should be something that you should highly consider and just do flat out in every one of your games, especially when you're playing a destroyer. And that's kind of was my goal. I was like, I know I have an aircraft carrier, and the aircraft carrier generally will be providing vision for the team. But again, when he does his strike and doesn't drop fighters and then recalls it, someone's got to keep those ships light. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do. And kind of why I'm trying to play in between B and C is because if I just go right of C, then ships only have to angle one direction towards all my ships that have the larger caliber guns plus me if they know I'm already over there. But now that I'm over on the left side of C, they have to factor that in and try to use island coverage, and they don't know where I'm at per se. Obviously now I smoke up, clearly they know where I'm at, but I'm just saying they have to try to guess. So they can't just full on go nose in towards my allies to the right of C because of this. So it's all strategy, and you got to play the long game. You can't just play the short game, say let me get in the caps, cap it. Like I think a lot of players right now would try to go and race into B and say I got to capture B. As the lone destroyer, I mean, I think there's more plays to be had, given the fact that I think, what is that ship that's creeping in to be on our team or in B? Like, they can do that, contest it while you're playing the vision and providing more of a nuisance. Again, another way I can impact my team is smoking up, HE spamming, and SAP spamming. As we know, people don't like that, clearly, so they're going to maneuver and change. Sometimes I'll get them to blind fire in my smoke and waste a salvo on that. Sometimes they'll just make stupid maneuvers and turns and go flat broadside to my allies. It's certain things like this that add up. You know, sort of like a game of mistakes, right? And it's just some things I think get overlooked by a lot of players, and they don't realize the battle impact you have. Now, I'm not saying sit and smoke and just farm for until my smoke is done. It's the right time and right place to do so. That's all I'm saying. So, anything else to really talk about the Johnston? Well, obviously it has the American smoke. This is something that I know we don't really touch on a lot in this channel. It's just like, oh, it's got a smoke screen, fucking rights. No, it does have it has the American smoke. You know, its action time is 30 seconds. Its smoke dispersion time is 127 seconds. You got that big radius on her at 450 meters, and the cooldown is 160. Yeah, I mean, it's super nice. So it should, theoretically speaking, you have what, 30 so seconds between your smoke dispersion time and your cooldown time, which is super nice. Obviously, I think the Pan Asians have a better one with how long theirs lasts and their cooldown time. And then I know that the Soviets now have an extremely good one, and I don't remember the name, like the numbers on it. Obviously, I don't want to pull it up in front of me either, but that's with the whole down the line that I did a whole down the line review on this channel already. Just a quick and condensed, you know, little review on those. I think those are fun DDs, criminally misplayed. I think they're actually pretty good. My only problem is that the tier 9 Tashkent just seems better than the Delny, though it isn't when you actually play it just on paper. But maybe it's because of the tier jump, maybe it's because of the ships you'll see. I don't know. I really enjoyed the Tashkent, but like the Delny for me, I don't know. I didn't really care too much about. Just me, just my opinion, guys. It's my opinion. Don't shoot me. But yeah, some other things we can touch base on her. She does have the ship mounted depth charges, right? So you have the 2 attacks, reload in 40 seconds. You got the 12 bombs per payload there. 5,100 damage is nothing to you know, shake your head at. With 800 meter radius, I mean, a flood chance of 43% and a fire chance of 21%. I mean, again, this thing does make quite the submarine hunter and killer. And I have done that in this ship a lot. So you have that in your back pocket, a little trump card in the back of your pocket there. You can definitely utilize as well. What else is there to talk about the Johnston? I mean, I guess like at this point I could probably do my final thoughts, because there is a lot of thoughts to be had about this ship. One, for the GQ Jonny event, I 100% believe you should go and attempt to obtain the GQ Jonny. Obviously, because it's a copy pasta of the Johnston. Wargaming keeps the named historical ships behind loot boxes, loot crates, which I am completely against. I fucking hate that. I think it is stupid, because all it does is create bad blood between you and your player base, which, let's be honest, there is some. for the most part. But again, I don't want to spend too much time on the negatives. I feel like a lot of players or a lot of CCs do a lot of negative shit and talk a lot of negative stuff about wargaming because there is quite a bit. And I would rather just keep the channel mostly positive. Like, everybody is aware of the scummy practices that wargaming does. That is just apparent. And if you don't, I think you're just in disbelief. But with that being said, the event that they're hosting with the Grand Voyage, the obtaining the San Diego, doing the GQ Jonny event, like, well done. I think we should give them a pat on the back. This is definitely a 10th anniversary done right so far, and I'm really happy to see that they're going the extra mile. Again, everybody knows. If you don't know, I don't know, but everybody should know that their latest project of Steel Hunters, which is like the robotics fighting arena, whatever, crash and failed, kind of crash and burn, which again, you swing and you miss. It happens in business, right? We all know that. But I can't help but feel like that net loss of money, investment time in that game, they realized that, and they're going and pumping in what should have been done for a while in World of Warships to help potentially create some revenue back that they have lost by taking a chance with that game, which is, I guess, good for us as player base, because we're finally getting a lot of things that have been overlooked, right, for a long time. So I'm happy to see it, though I don't want to spend too much on that topic in general. So another tip that I have in this ship, going into my final thoughts, is the burst fire mode. Obviously, you're going to have better DPM with it on anyways. You're going to be able to dish out way more damage with it on than if it was off. Just keep the F key hit. I think you're just going to get flat out better results with it. And there's really no reason to do it. I think you're actually going to be doing yourself a hindrance if you turn off your F key rather than if you just keep it on for the entire duration of the game. If you're new to this ship, if you're just playing this ship, whatever it is, if you get the GQ Jonny, just keep your F key hit the entire game and you will get good results in her, usually, unless you, of course, lose your first engagement. But again, even if you do lose, I guarantee you that enemy destroyer is going to be severely beaten and broken down, because this ship can 100% bully enemy destroyers, mixed with the concealment and the burst fire mode and the semi-armor piercing in the burst fire mode. And lastly, I have with this ship is the fact that her torpedoes are 100% usable, but I wouldn't spec in captain skills. I think they're good as is. I think a lot of the stuff they did in for the ship with the range, the damage, the speed, all that jazz, is to make up for you. Hey, we want you to invest in the guns. We're still going to give you adequate torpedoes, but mainly spec all your captain points into said guns, and you'll get better results in this ship. That's kind of what I think they've done with why they made the torpedoes as good as they are. Because I don't think the torpedoes are that bad, personally. I think they're pretty good and very usable. So anyways, guys, that is all I have on the Johnston. Stay tuned for more on the channel, and I will be pumping videos out here and there whenever I can. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Okay? Peace out and have a good one.